So I'm Ken, as this says, and I'm representing here, I guess, the Information Technology and Systems Center from the University of Alabama in Huntsville. And as well as part of what we do there, we also run a NASA data center there, a DAC, which is a Distributed Active Archive Center, the GHRC in this case, Global Hydrology Resource Center. And that's important for part of the discussion here of what we're trying to do. Part of what I'm reporting on is a NASA Access-funded effort for science on Drupal. It's been going on for the last 2 years or so, I guess. And Bruce Karen, who was just setting me up here with all of this stuff, is the PI for this effort. And Martin Lansfield, I guess, is involved with this. At UAH, this is the list of folks that have been involved on our end. Rahul Ramachandran was originally the local COI on this until he defected from UAH and went to NASA, the dark side, and so we had to kick him off the project. But then Sarah Graves took over as the PI on that. Ajinkya Kulkarni, that's listed here, is really the primary tech developer on this. I mention that as a way that if you have any deep tech questions about any of this stuff, which I don't think you will because of what we're doing, I would defer to him because I'm not that person. This is a poster that we had at this meeting, in fact, that I don't expect you to be able to read this, but it shows a lot of the other efforts that were involved with this project. A lot of really cool stuff, of which I'm not going to talk about today. But if you're interested, I can provide you with this information to show more about what we've been doing. I'm going to focus specifically on just this little part towards the end that we're doing as a wrap-up, which in my view is more of a directly simple applied Drupal application where we're trying to use just some off-the-shelf tools and regular technology to solve a particular problem that we're doing. Just a little bit of some background. What we currently have at the GHRC, our DAC at UH and Marshall, is being a DAC, of course, we already have a search and order system. In the past, this has all been an in-house developed effort, so it's developed with a variety of different languages and technologies and databases. But it's very much a special in-house developed application. As a result of that, just to back up, I don't want this to come out sounding negative towards the system because it's a very well received system. In fact, this bullet here I'm mentioning, it's actually praised throughout the DAC groups as being a very good search and order system for science data. But some of the characteristics I wanted to point out is that because of the way it's developed, it's very tightly tied to a specific database. So it's very brittle to any changes in the database and the system and the services, that type thing. So it's very hardwired in that case. It is all locally developed and maintained, which is good as long as you have the right people there that know the system from before and know how to work with it. But as you can see from me, a lot of us are starting to age, and we may not be around in the next 5 years or so it may not be a maintainable system going on. A lot of the tools that we're using are very dated, and the capabilities are not as flexible as we might want to see, especially for new developers that might come on and not know how to use those tools. We are responsible for we're responsible locally for a lot of these compliances, such as 508 compliance and things like web visibility, that type of thing. We're having to do all that in a manual effort at this point. Some of the good sides is that we can very quickly respond to development and changes on this system because it's a locally grown thing, and we know how to do that. But that's kind of the specialized thing, and going forward, that may not be a huge plus of this system. So that's what we're trying to do, is potentially show a way to replace what we're doing with our current search and order system with more of a Drupalized system. And part of the reason for this, I think you'd mentioned, we're getting ready to change our DAX overall web to a Drupal system. So we would have to be some changes in the search and order system anyway to adapt to that change. So this is kind of a well-timed effort to experiment doing the search and order with Drupal, so it will fit more easily into this new website that we're doing. So the approach we took, and I hope I kind of hit on some things here that was mentioned before, the problems of having customized modules and things in Drupal that you then have to maintain and keep up with. We're trying to avoid that as well. And that's what we've tried to do in this system. And I think overall we've been pretty successful, but we'll talk about that as we go through here. So the approach we're doing, we're employing the Drupal content management system primarily in this case, more for the user management in the web application. So the actual interface is Drupal, but we're not making use of a whole lot of the content management system itself in as far as the content, other than for the user management, that type of thing. We added then a database index and search modules that were already existing in Drupal to provide the search part of the functionality that we need through the science data. And then also we utilized an existing e-commerce module to handle the data ordering and the management of the data ordering system. So these are all off-the-shelf things. So the idea was we're not really intentionally not developing much of anything for this. We're trying to use all off-the-shelf stuff. So it's more a configuration problem rather than a development problem.
Real quick, Ken.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And please jump in whenever.
Do you know which modules you're using?
Yeah, I'll get into that as I go through. A very important part of this was that we had to work very closely with our data management group at the GHRC, our DAC, because one of the primary goals was to do no harm here. We didn't want to come out with functionality that was in any way worse or less than what we already had. So we had several iterations, many iterations actually, with our data management group as we were stepping through this to prove to them that we were able to have at least as good, or if not better, functionality. Because they weren't so concerned on how much effort was to develop it and maintain it. They just wanted to make sure from a user perspective that all the capabilities were there and we weren't losing anything along that way. So that was a real important part of this effort, was to keep that in mind. So these are really the tools that we're using, getting back to Adam's question, is, like I said, for the Drupal for the content, the user and role management, and the user interfaces. And then we're using Solr, which plugs into Drupal in this case, for the data indexing and the faceted search, which is a huge part of the search capability. And then there's an UberCart e-commerce module that we used for the data ordering and the management of the data orders. So this is all off-the-shelf stuff that we just plugged in here. I'm kind of hesitant to say this is all off the shelf and really easy, because Bruce is the PI here and he's been giving us money to do this. I don't want to imply that it was real easy, because he was paying us to do this. But it was kind of the point of the effort, was to try to make it as easy as possible to do this, which is kind of my point of explaining it here. So just drill down a little bit into the experience with Solr for the indexing and search. So one thing we had to do with Solr then was to ingest the existing metadata and information from our existing catalog of earth science data into Drupal or into the Solr system, so Solr could index that information. In our particular case, it could have been easier to do this if our current catalog had the capability to output a standard metadata structure, such as FGDC or any of the ISO structures. We didn't actually have that, so we could have gone the route of developing that capability in our DAC to output that information that way, because there's existing ingest modules in Drupal that would have ingested that data directly then. But as a result, we actually developed some specialized scripts just for our catalog structure to pull that into Drupal. So that's one place outside of Drupal, really, that we had to develop a piece that kind of bridged between our existing catalog and what we wanted to pull into the Drupal database. But it could have been easier depending on where the source was coming from originally. We ingested both the collection or the data set level and the inventory metadata, which is a sizable amount of information in our case for the whole repository at the DAC. Then we were able to, just out of the box basically, to index this catalog information then based on all the different parameters, instruments, platforms, et cetera, things that we have information on in the catalog that's important to be able to search on. Through Solr then, we get the benefit of these automatic filters then to be able to filter on these different facets. So that's just kind of an out-of-the-box gift then by doing that, which in the past with the existing system was a development effort for each of those type of facets, which we had all those facets in the existing system, but it was locally developed code that did all that. And here it was just there, so that was a huge benefit. An additional benefit that we got is that there's some metadata entry tools that exist in the Drupal and the Solr environments that will in the future make it easier to add new metadata into the system, which there again is not something we have to develop. That's just there and will help aid getting more information into the system, and really it's a benefit to the users because we can provide some better tools potentially to get that metadata into the system in the future. One issue we did run into, which gets back to the customization part, is that currently the spatial and temporal filtering of data in Solr isn't quite up to speed. So at least not for the capabilities that we needed. So besides the facets that we wanted to be able to search on, we needed to be able to do temporal and spatial searches, and that wasn't quite available the way we needed it from Solr. So we did have to develop some custom pieces for that. They're external at the moment, with the hope that if Solr comes up to speed in the future, we can get rid of those parts and won't have to worry about that. That's a problem going forward potentially, as a lot of you would know, is that as we upgrade to new versions of things, we would have to pull those pieces along and keep those as an integrated part of the system. So we hope to be able to drop those in the future, so we won't have to do that. And the faceted filters on all these different aspects, the parameters, instruments, platforms, et cetera, works well on the collection, the data set level, but is not communicated down to the level of the inventory, so the actual the granules of data. Part of that is because the way we've implemented, that's two different views on the data set and the inventory level, and that information is not automatically filtered down to the inventory level. So we had to do a little bit of manipulation there to get those filters passed down to the inventory, so we can get the actual granules back from that faceted search. it was kind of a minor point, but I just wanted to point out here that it was a little bit of an issue that we had to work around.
And can I quickly interrupt just to?
Yes, sir.
So I apologize, I'm a Google Drive idiot. Is anyone having trouble editing notes?
Yeah, I couldn't edit it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I gave you the view link. So the new one, I think, is Z08EB6, and I'll correct the slides. So lowercase Z08EB6, all lowercase. Okay, sorry for the interruption.
No, it's fine. It's perfect fine. So this is just a screenshot then of our current Solr interface that's doing the faceted search. So you just see here, the list of the data sets, and then on the left-hand side, just a few of the facets. If we were able to scroll on down here, we'd see more of those. Yeah.
How did you come up with the facets? Did that naturally come out of the data? Did you guys have a big discussion about it? Or, what was, I think that's one of the things that can be often a challenge with search, is deciding on the facets.
Yeah, it would depend on your application, of course, and
How did you guys
users. Well, we came from an existing system, right?
Okay.
For our DAC. We've been doing this for 20 years. So from user input and capabilities that we've done in the past, we essentially had all these facets originally just in our local homegrown application. So we added a few here actually because it was just easy to go ahead and add those facets as well. But we had this existing application base that we were working from, so that was a known entity. Yeah, but good point to bring up. So then the other aspect of the DAC functionality besides the search is then being able to do orders for the data. So we used a module called UberCart that's an existing Drupal module to do the online orders. So this handles or helps us do the generation of orders, and then more importantly, to some extent, is the management of those orders, because we do have a data management group that has to work behind the scenes to manage these orders and keep track of things. As far as I'm aware of, and this would be a thing for Jinkia to address specifically, I don't think we did any module development for this at all. It's all been done through configuration of this module, and there's still some additional things that we need to do there. But we had to do things like add new columns, and we still need to do some work on changing the commerce aspect of this, because it's all built around being able to pay for the product that you're ordering, and in this case, the data is free, so that's not really an aspect. It could be a feature. I keep telling them to put this credit card thing in there, and we can use that. That would be okay. So this is just a quick screenshot of the shopping cart checkout type environment. So this is nothing new. It's the same type of thing you'd see from any site that you went through that provides ordering of products and being able to pay for things, which in this case we're not really doing. Perhaps more important for us is some of the administrative views that we can go in then from the data management group can go in behind the scenes then and help manage the orders, create new orders manually if they need to do that, as well as search through the existing orders. So this is a big part that we were having to go back forth and iterate with the data management group to be sure we were covering all the capabilities here. But here again, there's still some customization that we're doing through the configuration to get all the right fields that they're interested in from this system, and to lessen the pay for type experience that we don't really want to expose to the users at this point. So some of the next steps that we're trying to do here in the status is that we're finishing up the order management part. There's still some things we're working with the data management group on to be sure we're covering all their requirements on that. And then ultimately we're going to move this to our innovation site to allow more of a public review of this functionality and get back some feedback on it to help go forward on this before we actually hopefully will integrate it into the GHRC or the DAC operations eventually. Because the DAC is a production system, this can't be an overnight thing. That'll be a fairly slow process to integrate that into the operational site, but which is moving to Drupal, so that's good as well. So, so just to go over some of the benefits perceived, and I'm sure there's probably more here that I'm not going to address, but these are just some of the ones that are pretty obvious. It dramatically shortens the development time because we were using just off-the-shelf capabilities. Very little development went on here, so it was a fairly short cycle. We found that it actually motivates us to review and do a better job of structuring our metadata in our catalog, because if it's structured better and presented in better ways, it fits into these tools better. So when you know this is the target to use these kind of tools to do that, it makes you kind of go back and police your information a little bit better and refactor some things, which should be done anyway. But when you're using a locally grown system, it's not always as important because you kind of have some creep in the development there, or the design of your database that's not really optimal, at times. So it's been a benefit there. We got the user and role management just off the shelf from Drupal, so that's a huge benefit because in the past we've had to do that, ourselves. We feel like it's an improved search capability that we're getting as a result of this. There's still some testing to be done there, but our initial test has shown that it's probably better than what we have now. The off-the-shelf tools for order management are really great, because that's in the past been a big problem for us is developing and maintaining a good system to manage those orders. So to get this just off the shelf has been a real benefit. And I think going on, hopefully if this proves out to be useful, this would be real easy to be able to package it up and deploy it to other sites if they wanted to use this same system. So basically we could get it configured, create an image of it perhaps, and deploy it to other DACs or other locations that might want to reuse this functionality. So the reusability potentially is a big plus here, I think, as well. I think that's pretty much it. I originally planned to jump out and do a demonstration of this, but there's really not all that much to show, because we kind of went through it all here. But this is where I got a link here to our innovations test site, and you're all welcome to go here and play with this if you'd like. But I can't scroll down here, but there, oops. But the first one on the left here is the Science on Drupal effort, and this is the data search and order system. So you can go in and play with this, but you'll basically see just what I was showing was that it has the faceted search on the left, and you're able to create some orders, and that's basically the system. So not a huge flashy thing here, but it's just, I think, a practical application of some of this technology to a real world science data problem, that we have. And that's it. And here's I think these slides will be available. So the link to the innovations test site is here as well. Welcome questions or comments. Okay.
Well, just your
Okay.
So your data offerings have the granularity of them are such that you can expose them all through the same for level of interface, or did people have to drill down, get to the granules that they want to order?
Well, and yes, to get to the granules, you do have to drill down through it, but the data sets are all presented at the top level through the different categories and stuff. But that was a discussion actually going back and forth with the data management group, whether we wanted to try to get them all on the first level there, if we wanted to have to drill down through the categories. At this level, depending on your view, your filter, it's pretty manageable just at the top level with being able to view all the data sets. So, yeah.
The metadata you're pulling in, it's fairly mature, the system you have for maintaining that.
That's right.
Are you gonna, so therefore, you're not really moving to Drupal as the content management system, it's more just to present data to the public.
Well, that's still an ongoing discussion. For this prototype, we're actually sucking in all the metadata into Drupal. So we are managing that in that Drupal environment. I think that's the direction from what we've seen that we'll probably will go towards as we move over to a completely Drupal system. We probably actually would use that approach. I can't say for definite that we will, because that's an operational decision that we're going to have to make.
I'm interested in that, when you move to this new platform, it presents to users the same metadata, but in a more user-friendly way, perhaps, or you can interact with it better. And I wonder what that would highlight in terms of this, the content you might want to enhance it with. The common searches people might use, or common ways people might drill down into your repository.
Yeah, I see where you're going. Part of what we gained with going to Solr, for instance, is a more easily deployed faceted search capability, which that was all kind of a hardwired thing that we were doing locally before. So it is more flexible in that sense, which is what you're getting at, I think. And we could very easily add new facets or new search views into that same catalog now using this capability. Because the tools that we're using are specifically developed to be able to do that. Where in the past, if we wanted to add that type of functionality, it was a development effort to go in and add those capabilities. So that is a benefit here. From a user experience, you're right, it's more easy to add additional views than to slice and dice that information in different ways that the user might want to see that we would have not been able to do as easily before. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and more I was interested in the development of new content that maybe, was a scientist would be able to decipher, but now a new user base, they wouldn't have that context, and you need to develop that metadata explicitly for that new user base.
I guess that's possible. We don't foresee that because our catalog is pretty robust now with all the metadata, I think, that from our 20 years of experience doing this data ordering and search system, that, and according to the standards, there's community standards, of course, on that type of geospatial metadata that's collected, as well as ESDIS from NASA kind of dictates some of that as well. So I think that's pretty complete in this system. We could expand that. I mean, if we got user requests for more types of information on all of the data sets, but that hasn't typically been our experience if that's the case. But it is easier to expose more of that perhaps we're not exposing necessarily here. So, yeah. Okay.
Thanks a lot, Ken.
Yeah.